Okay, we are thrilled that you have joined us again for another segment in what I consider just life skills, and that is communication and personality types. And you know, the secret to effective communication with others is the ability to listen and to communicate in a way that helps others feel safe, understood, and comfortable. But you know what? So few people actually do that. Most people, when they're talking to someone, are so busy thinking about what they're going to say next that they don't really even hear most of what the other person shares. And so what you're going to find when we're done with this segment is that your communication skills, your listening skills are going to dramatically increase the value and the relationships with the people that you care about most. It's also going to be an invaluable tool in your Mary Kay business. So if you have not yet taken the personality style test that is on section 4 of our new consultant website, I'm going to ask you to stop the recording and take that test and then total up how many of the first letter, how many of the second, how many of the third, and how many of the fourth. And then we will share more about that as soon as you're done, and you can simply restart the video. Okay. We're assuming you are done with the test, and I don't know about you, but you know, sometimes I read some of those questions and I was like, well, all 4 describe me or none of them describe me. So I hope you just chose the one that described you most accurately most of the time. And so it's going to be interesting to us as sales directors to find out what your first and second letter were. And so when you're done taking the test, shoot us an email or post a note for us on our unit Facebook pages about what your first and second letters are. For me, when I take the test, my first letter is an I, which is in the number 2 spot, and my second strength was a D. How about you, Beth?
You know, it's interesting, and I would encourage you to take this at different times because it can change over time. And I love the fact that this is not a pass-fail test, right? It's just like God gave some of us different color hair and different color eyes. He gave us all different strengths and abilities. And so at the top of Mary Kay, you will see every personality style represented very successfully, and there will be all 4 personality styles. So your objective is to really become adept in adapting to whatever personality style that you're communicating with. And it's like being a chameleon in whatever environment. Because I can remember Jeannie saying when I was new consultant, you know, she said it doesn't really matter if you are comfortable when you're communicating. They need to feel comfortable. It doesn't matter if you're sweating bullets. You need to communicate in such a way that they feel comfortable. And so typically, when I've taken this test, it's really interesting. There's not necessarily like a peak or a valley, but they're kind of balanced in between those D, I, S, N, C.
And it's a common known fact that about 70% of all communication is misunderstood. That is a scary thought. 70%. And I kind of like the old adage that God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. And so it's so important to just ask questions and be a good listener. Now, first of all, we know that when you are at an interview or you're meeting a new customer, you're not going to be able to hand them a personality test and say, would you take this test so I will know how to better communicate with you? But there are some simple questions that you can ask that will give you great insight into their personality. And those actually can be found on the bottom of one of the sheets that is there for you under session 4 for you to print. And the very first question is, tell me a little bit about yourself or your situation. Now, if they are a D personality, which stands for dominant, and you can see all of that on that great chart, that means they're primarily going to tell you about their accomplishments, the things that they do, how many people they supervise, the programs or projects that they're in charge of. If they tell you more things like who they know and the fun things they did, they're probably an I. If when you ask that question, they tell you about their family, they're probably an S. And if they tell you something like, well, why do you want to know? Or what specifically do you want to know? They are probably a C. And so right off the bat, with that one question, it's going to allow you to begin to get some ideas about what that person is comfortable with. What would be another question they might ask, Beth?
Well, I also love just taking a look at even how people are dressed, because without knowing them at all, sometimes that will give you clues into their personality style. And I will typically have real fun, flashy, blingy jewelry, maybe a lot of color. They just look like the life of the party a lot of times. An S is typically very reserved in her dress, very straight lines, clean cuts. There's not anything that's really flamboyant at all or draws attention to herself. A C probably has their clothing starched and pressed at the cleaners, because perfection is really important to a C in their dress and in their attire. And a D is probably going to wear things that do command attention, like a lot of times for guys, if they're a D personality, they might have on a red tie or something that was a little bit more bold in its color, because they are confident people usually by nature. And that's also really another great way to kind of determine personality style, not just across the board always, but it's interesting if you'll start to notice the way people dress. It's very often reflective of their personality style. So take a look at how they're dressed. Ask that initial question, well, tell me just a little bit about yourself. And by listening, you'll start to pick up those little clues about that personality style.
And sometimes even their career field choice can give you some insight. We want to give you some real life examples that might be helpful for you. My husband Dick, he and I have been married for 35 plus years. He was an international airline pilot before he retired, so obviously very, very detail oriented. When we were first married, I think it about killed him that I did not load the dishwasher the way he did. If I would just load the cups this way and the plates this way, I could get one more glass and 3 more plates in the dishwasher. My high I personality thought, well, what is the big hairy deal? I'll just run the dishwasher again. And we spent about the first 5 years of our life trying to clean up the other one's act. I would buy him functional things like power tools for his birthday or our anniversary, and he would buy me collectibles. I hate to dust. If it doesn't have function, I don't want it. And so you know what? The material that I learned through Mary Kay, and Dick even eventually learned this material, has made such a difference in our relationship. We're not trying to change each other anymore. Well, not much. But anyway, we encourage each other. We understand how the other one thinks, and it's not a right or wrong thing. What would be an example for you, Beth?
Well, I think a lot of times when you stop to think about how you communicate with each personality style, that can be very different. If you are a high I and you're married to somebody that is a D, you tend to give them every detail, and really they just want to know, tell me the bottom line. And that is something they respect in your conversation with them. And so in your communication with a D, you just need to shoot them straight, cut to the fluff. In your job situation, think about people and coworkers that you work with. If you're an I and they're a D, you need to think, oh, cut to the bottom line, eliminate a lot of words, let's just get right to it. And the converse is also true. If you are a D by nature, you're communicating with somebody that is an I, you can appear to be really curt and abrupt with them and not even mean to, because you're so bottom line. And the I needs a little bit more information. A lot of times they want to know how it was said and who said it and what was happening at the same time. If you are in a working relationship or in a relational aspect with somebody, whether that's your child or your spouse or a friend, if they are an S, you need to remember to ask them about how their family is doing. You know, if you're working with somebody in that relationship, if you stick your head in their office and say, hey, tell me about how your kiddos are doing. I know it's almost time to head back to school. that will go worlds of a long way in their world, because that's something that's so important to them. If you are married to somebody, or you have a child that is a C and a very detailed perfectionist, you need to remember to really maybe praise their work. And if they've done a chore at home, or if they've made the bed or whatever, they want you to notice the detail that they put into and that they invested in that work, and not pick it to death because it wasn't maybe perfect, because they don't want you to be critical of their work. So when you really invest a little bit of time to take this test yourself, and then really analyze the different characteristics, how to communicate with each personality style, this will prayerfully bless every area of your life.
Well, and I want to give you one more example. If you have small children, my youngest daughter, Tori, is a serious SC personality, and she would order the exact same thing from McDonald's every single time we went. No deviation whatsoever. However, I could not just pull straight up to the drive-thru and say, okay, Tori, what would you like? She'd have a come apart. I needed to give her about 2 miles notice that we were going to McDonald's so she could think through it in her brain. And even though she ordered the same thing, that kept peace and harmony in the car. And remember, gang, just because you are one personality style and someone else is another, if we each didn't think that our personality was great, we wouldn't be that. And so we always have to be very respectful of the person that we're communicating with, and try to be like a chameleon, not on your values or your integrity, but in your communication style, so they can actually hear what you are saying.
And there's a couple of fun examples just to give you, and thinking about how you identify different personality styles. Let's say that you and 4 of your girlfriends were all going together to the movies. Y'all are just going to go see a fun movie.
Yay! I'm so excited.
There's the eye, right?
Where movie are we going to?
She's so excited.
I don't care.
She doesn't care what movie you're going to. She just knows it's fun time with the girls. Well, your D is probably going to be your driver, right? Mm-hmm. Because they are going to want to make sure and be in control of the situation. They're also at the movies going to sit on the end of the aisle, because they want to be in control of letting people in and out, and be in control. That's their bottom line. Your S in that group going to the movies is probably going to have snacks in her purse, for everybody, because she loves to take care of people. She might be on the phone with her family back and forth, just checking in and being sure that they're okay while they're there. And the C is probably going to know every detail about the movie. She's going to know where it was filmed, who are the actors in the movie. She's watched the trailer. She's looked at it online, because she's such a detailed person. So, just some fun dynamics that you can look at in everyday life situations.
And so what would be some great action steps for you to take to begin to master this information? Because remember, it's only information until you implement it. And so here's a couple of quick things. First of all, of course, take the test. Second of all, send your director what your first and secondary numbers are. Third, print 5 extra tests and have 5 people that you spend the most time with take the test, never in a judgmental way, but just so that you can understand how they think and what their personality is, so that you can become an even more effective communicator with them. You're going to also want to work on the normal things as a new consultant. And so some of those things would be, Beth?
Absolutely. Taking a look at that next best steps checklist, making sure that you have had that inventory conversation with your director, working on those prize vouchers, leaving your fun, positive, pertinent Mary Kay news on our Facebook page, and then also just making sure that you're maintaining that communication with your recruiter and with your director, returning their phone calls, emails, messages, whatever communication that you prefer.
And here's the bottom line. Great communication builds great relationships. It is so worth the investment. Thanks, you guys. Goodbye.